let's see about Kubernetes architecture. This is a structure used by cloud service providers like Google Kubernetes engine or Amazon Kubernetes engine. But when we installing Kubernetes in our personal laptop, the structure will be some different. In our previous video, we just see this virtual machine node alone. We haven't seen the master node. Okay, so here is this part we haven't seen. So Kubernetes architecture has two separate parts. One is the master node and another one is the worker node. So previously we named this as a virtual machine. Okay, now we should not say that as a virtual machine. That's a worker node. Okay, master node have another name, that is control plane. This entire setup they will mention as cluster. Okay, so we can start from the master node itself. The first is user interface. It is nothing but the console. Okay, the next is kubectl. This is the command used to interact with the worker node. Okay, for example, in Docker we will use docker images command, right? It will list out every images. Like the same, when we need to see the list of pod means we used to kubectl get pods. Okay, so next is we come to master node. There are several components in the master node. The first is API server. Okay, API server is a communication gateway within the cluster. So if a user in console, he gives like kubectl get pods, it will automatically hit the API server. The API server will check whether this is a valid command and it will route that command to the worker node. Then it will display the number of list of pods to the user. Okay, not only from external, also if the scheduler want to communicate with controller manager, or the scheduler should communicate to kubelet or kubeproxy, it directly first hits to the API server and then the communication happens. So the next is scheduler. Scheduler means whenever we are trying to deploy an application in containers means we usually have a YAML file. In that YAML file, we will make up some stories like I need this much pod, I need my application to be run in this port, and I need this much CPU, and the volume should be here I need to place. Like that, we will make up some stories in the YAML file. Okay, when we run this YAML file, our application will get deployed. Okay, now here we have given I need 5 pods to be running. Okay, in the YAML file. So the scheduler, it will come to the scheduler. The scheduler schedules, there are 2 nodes, right? It will schedules like here some 2 pods, and here in this node 2 we can have 3 pods. Like 5 pods can be run in 2 nodes. Okay, like that scheduler will schedule based on the availability of node. Okay, next is the controller manager. Controller manager is responsible for checking the entire cluster is working properly. It has controllers like node controller, which checks whether the nodes are healthy. This worker nodes are healthy. The node controller will check. And there is another controller called replication controller. Replication controller means in YAML file we used to we assume like we are giving 5 pods, right? So this replication controller will check whether this in the 2 nodes 5 pods are running or not. Okay, so this is the main concept of the control manager. Next is the etcd. So it is a database. It stores the configuration data of the entire cluster. Okay, the data is like how the pod running, is it healthy or not, the current state of the pod, every information will be stored in the etcd. So next is the worker node. So worker node is nothing but in cloud service provider, it is a virtual machine. Inside the virtual machine, n number of containers can run. Okay, so in the virtual machine you will have an operating system. This every pod will access the operating system only. In every node they have a separate operating system. Okay, so in the containers only our application will get deployed. On top of there is a wrapper as pod. So in other part, pod is known as small deployment unit. Okay, because inside the pod there are our application containers are running, right? That's why it is known as deployment unit. So in a single node we can have n number of pods. Okay, on top of the OS we will have a container runtime. Container runtime is nothing but the Docker or Podman. Okay, this acts as a barrier and this will manage the containers which are running inside the pod. Okay, it is like a CPU to the containers. The container runtime is like a CPU to the containers. Okay, it's just an assumption. Okay, so next is kubelet. Kubelet will check the pod state and it will report the feedback to the controller manager. Okay, from the master node. And also kubeproxy, kubeproxy will handle the network communication between the pods. Okay, between the pods or the external world. If our application need to access some data from the external world, kubeproxy will take care of it. So I have mentioned like in every communication from kubeproxy, it will go to the API server, and API server will check whether it is a valid, and the communication will happen. Okay, so that's all about the Kubernetes architecture in cloud environment. So if you have any doubt, you just post it in the comment section, and also make sure you have watched the previous videos as well. Then it will be very easy to grasp the concept. And thank you.